So I'm trading my sorrows, I'm trading my shame, I'm laying them down for the joy of the Lord. Yeah.
All right, we are here today with Darrell Evans, and Darrell, you just did a concert here at our church last night, and I asked you if you would be willing to come in and let us do an interview with you. And so I've got some questions for you. Mm-hmm. First of all, I would just like for you to tell us what's new and what's going on. I know that you're on your way down to LA.
Yes. Me and a friend were headed down to Los Angeles to record a new, I still call them album, but I guess grouping of MP3s. And tentatively the title is Awesome God Is He.
Okay.
And so it'll be, primarily congregational worship songs, but there'll also be some encouragement songs in there. And Paul says in Ephesians 5:19, he says, "Speak to one another with songs." And I like that, speak to one another. Mm-hmm. And then it says, "Sing and make music in your heart to the Lord." So this record will have the sing and make music in your heart to the Lord, but also the speak to one another encouragement type element in there as well. And I've always tried to do a song or two like that and not take too much focus away. But anyway, so we're going to spend some time in a studio near LA recording these new tracks. I'm very excited about the new songs. I've road tested 2 or 3 of them quite a bit. Some of them have been written just in the last month. Yeah. In the last 2 months, but a couple of them I've had for a year that I've been trying on the road and seeing how it helps people praise, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
Well, I was just telling you last night that I lead worship at our church and a lot, and I was telling you I'm glad that you're recording a new project because I need some new material.
That's great
for our church. But also, one of the things I wanted to do in this interview is, how in the Bible it says that we're to make His praise excellent.
Yes.
And so there's an aspect of, as worship leaders and as worship musicians, where we want to work on our skill and hone our craft, so to speak. And I wanted to ask you, for people that are on worship teams or worship leaders that are out there listening or watching, if you could tell me, because I know you get to work with a lot of people and you've seen a lot of musicians that you've worked with, and you've worked in different sizes of churches and things like that. What do you look for, and how do you recognize a musician that has matured and is more seasoned, and what are some of the rookie mistakes that young and inexperienced musicians make, or even that worship teams make?
Yeah. Well, I'd say what I look for, someone who is seasoned and mature in their instrument. It doesn't necessarily mean they've had to play for a long, long time, but it's someone that is constantly pursuing, learning and things like that. But the key for me is simplicity. And so I look for, in my musicians, people who are bridled horses. Mm-hmm. And so you can be a wild young stallion, with all this energy in life, just, I'm free, running the fields. Mm-hmm. And that's like the electric guitarist, just at every moment playing every new lick he's learned. The keyboard players all over, the drummer's doing fills every time, and that kind of thing. They've got all this energy in life, and they just learned this thing, and they're trying it out in the song, and it's like a train wreck waiting to happen with all these people doing this. And then there's a different type of horse that has all the energy and vibrance and passion that wild, free horse, seemingly free horse has, and it's been broken and ready to ride, and it has a bit in its mouth, and it's uncomfortable. And but when the rider just barely tugs to the left and moves to the right and moves, when it says trot, trot, gallop, gallop, when it says okay, now it's time to go, it runs. And so I want musicians whose lives are fit for the king to ride, And so it's not about playing every note you can play, and it's about simplicity, and less is more many times. There are times where to cut loose. But if everyone's playing on top of each other, the other thing I think rookie mistakes as a band with different musicians is people playing this in the same range as each other.
Like the same tonal range?
Yeah, let's say you're playing in G and everyone's playing down here.
Okay.
Or the guitar's playing down here in the same range of G, the keyboard player's playing, the bass player's playing, the electric. And so if I'm playing down here, I want the electric guitarist to be up here and the keyboards to be somewhere in the middle just to glue it together and not be overstated and things like that.
Like if you and I were playing guitars together, and if you were playing down on the neck, maybe I might play something higher. Okay.
Yeah, cover different ground.
Okay.
If I'm strumming, I want maybe you to pick just a couple notes back and forth while I'm you know. And if I'm picking, maybe you're just doing kind of a strum thing,
Like a sustained chord or something.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, to cover different ground. And then with the bass player, I like him to sync up with the kick drum.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I like the bass player. It doesn't have to be this way, but I just personally, if it's possible, I like to have the bass player standing on the snare side of the drummer, and that what the kick drum is doing, if it's doing that the bass player is boom, 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 that he's at least, it doesn't have to be exactly what the kick drum's doing, but he's playing off of that, you know, he's keying that. So I look for simple things like that, and some of the best players I've played with play less than young players who are just excited to play and show everything they've got.
Even though they could play more, because they're
Even though they
capable
could
of
play
it,
more.
and they would do a great job, but they just know not to.
Yeah, and you listen to some great bands, they're all doing really cool parts, but very understated. But when you put it all together and the keys kind of just glue it together instead of being all over the place, and
Right.
they're all in the groove and they're not trying to play over each other, it's an amazing sound. And I think in worship that helps people instead of distracts people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Now, one thing that I have always loved about you and your worship leading and the music that you create, and I noticed this last night in the concert that you did, was just how you create atmosphere in the music that you do. For example, last night the concert you did was just you and your guitar, but you used like delay and some other effects on some of the songs. Like I think you did it on Rescue, and maybe Your Love is Extravagant, I think was another one, where there was just like long extended periods of just what felt like to me spontaneous worship. But you bent down and you did some stuff with your effects or something.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what
yeah,
you did
well,
there?
when you're playing alone, you can play more because you're it.
Mhm.
You're the bass, you're the rhythm, you're the everything.
Right.
And but again, I've found that the simpler, the simpler the better there. But to be able to add a different element helps to lend something different to the ear.
Mhm.
It's like I'm just strumming the same key the whole night with just one instrument. It might get old to people's ears. I mean, people are human, they
Right.
need some variety. And so, and I like to play, in the key of E quite a bit.
Mhm.
And so you've got to do some different
Yeah.
things to change up to help people keep moving along in worship.
Mhm.
And also just for the joy of the Lord. And so, I haven't done it for a while because I'll usually at least have one other musician with me, someone playing electric or a second acoustic or a lap steel or something. But when I'm by myself, it's nice to just have maybe one pedal and maybe pick a couple moments to do some kind of atmospheric thing to give people just a moment to just stay
Now,
there for a while.
You were using delay last night?
It was a delay, yeah, it's called Memory Box, or Memory Toy is the name of the pedal I was using.
When you use a delay like that, do you usually like tap in the rhythm, or do you set the rhythm manually? Or
Yeah, I tap in the rhythm, but because I didn't want to be too distracting, I was trying to do as much with my feet as I could with the knobs. But with that, sometimes I had to kind of bend down and let this moment just kind of repeat. It has this really almost keyboard pad kind of thing that'll happen repeating what I just played.
What do you like to do, like when you're messing with rhythms on delay? Do you do like what's the rhythm?
I usually do a. So then that gives me room, and it gives a little bit of delay. I don't like to carry it on forever.
So you would tap in on the downbeat usually?
Yeah, so what I did actually was before the night, I tapped in where I thought most of it would lay. And then through the night, I just kind of changed with my foot. There was one moment where it was a drastic change, and so you hear this almost modal change, woo, you know, on the chord. I was like, oh, stink, you know. But I'm still kind of learning that pedal. But yeah, just to add a little something different.
You know, there are going to be guitar players out there that heard you do that, and they're going to think that's, you know, Darrell did it, so they're going to go try to mimic it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I wanted to ask you too, just about your songwriting process. You know, I know somebody that does what you do. Probably you look at it in some respects as your job. You want to get out more music, and so you maybe schedule times to songwrite. But then there's spontaneous moments also.
Yeah, well, for me, this not as much like an office schedule, because that doesn't work for me too well. But I have what I've just decided that if I want to be a songwriter, then I'm going to consider myself a songwriter. If you want to write songs, consider yourself a songwriter. Bring a notebook with you within arm's reach everywhere you go, and a couple pens, and write down ideas along the way. And you've got for the rest of your life to finish that idea.
Right.
And so the process for me is different every time. Normally, because I play acoustic, and that's where I learned how to worship the Lord, I'll sit down with an acoustic, start with a few chords, and just kind of, this sounds like, and begin to sing spontaneously, you know, what it might sound like, and just kind of find, and then the melody kind of starts to find itself, and then I work the lyric. But what I've done recently in the last couple of years is try to break myself out of how I normally write, so that maybe I'll write something, you know, from a different angle. And so, you know, if you're a guitarist, try learning a few, you know, how to 1-3-5 on the keyboard, and just because writing on a piano or keyboard is a little different feel. You have more of a pedaled type thing happening, and then also I'll start with a lyric idea instead of. Normally, I like to start with a chord progression that's different, and then and write from there. But then I'll say, well, how about today? You know, I just write a good lyric, and then try to find a melody that makes sense for that, and then the chords and things like that. But I write a lot of different ways now because I want to stretch myself. So yeah, so I try to write from different perspectives: lyric first, or melody first, or chord progression first, or theme idea first. My theology on songwriting comes from Psalm 45:1.
Okay.
So people wonder, where do songs come from? And so, is it come just from here? Just from here? Is there how does this happen? And so Psalm 45:1 says, "My heart is stirred, or moved, or inspired by a noble theme." And noble is something uncommon, not something just everyday run of the mill. Something uncommon and higher. By a noble theme, a theme is something that you're meditating on. It's something deep. It's something that runs for a while. So my heart is stirred by a noble theme as I recite my verses for the King. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. So I'm like, Holy Spirit, you're the stirrer and the inspirer, and I'm responsible to. You're worthy of my best effort in crafting something to give to you, to give back to you. You've given me a grace to write, and I'm going to give you the best offering that I can in this. And so I don't just go, well, that's how I received it, so that's how it's going to be, and let it just stink or be undeveloped. But I'm saying you're worthy of my best effort in this. That even the writing of a song can be an act of worship. I don't feel like I got to do it in 15 minutes. Maybe it's 15 years. Maybe it's 5 years. Maybe it's 2 days. Maybe it is 15 minutes. But and then God's grace can be on that process too. But I try to write from different places, and I like to go to a coffee shop or somewhere like that where I can just kind of spend some time and just be open to it. And I carry something to record my ideas with. Might just be on my phone. I've got a little tab, which is like an iPad, or even like people that have an iPhone, they have a blue microphones. They make a little thing. I think it's called the Blue Fire or something like that. I forget what it's called. But you can just stick it in the bottom of your iPhone, or if you have a newer iPod Touch, and it's like $75 or $80, I don't know. And you can download an app that you can record in that, and it sounds really good. And just record, here's a melody idea, and just kind of sing into this thing, or here's the words, and here's the groove, and then you listen back, and then you start sing over that and play over that, and so just whatever gets your motor running is what I try to do.
I've written some songs also, and I know what you mean, because you'll get like an idea And if you don't record it or find some way to capture it, it'll be gone.
Yeah,
A lot of times, you know.
Yep.
So that's really
That's
good.
exactly right. It's important to capture while it happens.
I wanted to ask you too. You probably have worked with a lot of different churches and being. I don't know to what extent you've been responsible for overseeing the worship ministry at a church, but I know you've done that some. But I know you've seen a lot of water go under the bridge when it comes to this kind of thing. Which, by the way, we're having widespread flooding right now here where we're at in Oregon. So I wasn't sure how well Let the River Flow would go off last night.
Yeah,
but it actually did awesome.
Yeah, let it rain, let it rain.
Yeah, let it rain. But I wanted to ask you, what are some things like to worship pastors out there or worship leaders who are coordinating a worship team ministry? What are some best practices that you've seen or heard of that other people have done when it comes to like working with volunteers, conducting rehearsals, things like do you do auditions or not, or do you let people play when they're not quite ready just to help them get more mature? Or what would you say some best ideas are?
Oh man, you could spend, this is a whole conference worth of a question. But I just simply put, people who are in development, find places for them to serve that are low risk.
Oh, that's good.
So that they develop along the way. For the team, don't overwork them. Let it be almost like a small group fellowship. You're growing in God together. When you practice together, don't practice too long. Don't let them be too long sessions. It's going to be okay. But when you practice, don't let it be just practicing the songs. Practice the presence of God together.
That's good.
Because when you start to go there together, you start to be so sensitive to each other and to the Lord, and it really is a pastoral heart towards people too.
Right.
When you can do this thing together, it really grows something sweet. So in doing that, we're going to practice the songs, but we're going to leave some space to really just engage in worship in this too. And also, I used to have my worship team, before we'd even start, I'd give a 3-minute just encouragement and prayer, and then I'd put on a worship song that I liked, and we would walk around and pray through the sanctuary for each seat. Not praying for the seat, but praying for the person ahead of time who was going to be seated there. Right. And that they would be able to, have a grace to give everything they need to the Lord, respond to the Lord, and all those things. And I think it really built in a pastoral heart into my team. So those are just a few things. I mean, there's so many things there, but I think worshiping together, praying, interceding for people together for 5 minutes, and having that expectation together, and making it like a small group in terms of the spiritual and relational dynamic, and not overworking people, letting them enjoy this thing, and then low risk opportunities for people in development. Okay. So where maybe they're even on,
like they could lead worship for the men's Bible study.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
but they may not be ready for the stage on Sunday morning yet.
Right. Lead 2 songs before the men's breakfast. Or let's say you've got a young electric guitarist. Is let him be on stage next to the seasoned electric guitarist, but don't put him in the house. Put him in his ears so he thinks he's doing his thing.
Maybe have his amp on, but turned down so only he can hear himself.
Exactly, and let him kind of play with this guy and learn and develop without it being what's going to happen this morning. And just things like that help develop people, and they get to learn to play. It's one thing to play by yourself; it's another thing playing with a team. Right.
Well, to wrap this up, I've got something I want you to listen to. Why don't you hit play on that cassette tape player there?
Oh my goodness.
All the ages, my eyes have read all the pages. Oh, to find you.
Okay,
what a horrible guitar tone, man.
You can go ahead and turn it down. This is off of a cassette tape called Crimson River there. And this, from what I understand, is from 1995. Was it a music ensemble you were part of at ORU?
Well, it was just a band that I started. Your brother-in-law was the bass player. It was actually my original band.
Okay.
Giles Smith, who played on the Let the River Flow record, was on it. played drums. Matt Jones played bass, and he played on my first few records. And then Todd Davidson, who played electric guitar early on, he was on this. So it was just the four of us,
Yeah.
doing a band thing.
Cassette tape. Like we don't even know what to call a new recording project anymore. Like you said, a collection of MP3s is what you're coming out with soon. I've even seen artists that sell like cards that have a coupon on or a code on it that lets you download all the songs in a particular project, and that's what they sell at the concerts sometimes because people,
a download card. Yeah,
I don't know how much time CDs are going to be more.
I still like to have a CD to hold. I like to have it in my hand and read through the notes and stuff, but I love the MP3 thing too. So you do a little bit of what speaks to different people.
All right,
works.
Well, man, thank you so much, and
it's been great to be with you. With you guys.
I really appreciate your gift to the church today during this age, and you to me have inspired me, and I know you've inspired a lot of people to be songwriters and to really create, perfect the art of worship, and I really feel like you pioneered, the sound, or you were one of the main pioneers of the new modern worship movement, really all globally, and thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to have you here today, and to have you last night at the church.
So, yeah, I enjoyed being with you.
And I look forward to hearing your new project so much. So
me too. It's gonna be good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared. Bless you.